What is this? I think Muscle Man is going for the Shredder!
Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is Devin coming back at you with another video today on Pub Stomp MTG, and in this video today I'm excited to talk about the new Slinza, the Spike Stampede from the new Jumpstart 2025 product. And there's an enormous amount of reasons why I wanted to talk about this card specifically. For starters, we finally have a commander that focuses specifically on beasts, and I'm absolutely all for it. Before diving any further into this card, let's first read what it does. So for 4 and a green, it's a legendary creature beast. Beast spells you cast cost 2 less to cast. Each other beast creature you control enters with an additional +1/+1 counter on it, and whenever Slinza or another creature with power 4 or greater enters, you may pay 1 and a hybrid Gruul cost. When you do, Slinza fights target creature you don't control. Because of the red and green mana cost in that text, this will make it a Gruul commander, which I'm absolutely excited for. So the main focus of this deck is obviously going to surround beasts, because we can reduce their mana cost and they get buffed up when they enter the battlefield. And plus our commander can be removal on a stick, so there's a lot of ways we could build around this commander, and let's get it started. So let's first discuss the deck as a whole and talk about key synergy pieces. I'm first going to focus on that last ability because it's great removal and we want to make sure we can protect our commander so it doesn't die when it fights another creature. We'll want to make sure we have a lot of low CMC protection spells like Tamiyo's Safekeeping, Heroic Intervention, so that way when a creature with power 4 greater enters our battlefield, it's going to be a decent mana cost. We want to make sure our commander can be protected when we fight another creature. Another way we could protect our commander when it fights another creature is simply just making it bigger, so using cards like Xenagos God of Revels or even Zapandra Hunger Dominus, doubling the power and toughness of that creature, is going to help us basically remove anything on the battlefield. There are some other ways we can protect our commander by using Mithril Coat or even Darksteel Plate. We won't have to worry about our commander dying on the battlefield unless there's some type of exile effect, because our commander will get indestructible. Let's continue with the fight theme and talk about Boxing Ring. This is a perfect card. If there's any card to recommend, this would be it. It has that ability whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, it fights up to 1 target creature you don't control with the same mana value. Sometimes that may happen, sometimes that may not happen, but I like it for that second ability. You could tap it, create a treasure token, activate only if you control a creature that fought this turn. So if we have our commander fight, we're going to be getting a treasure every single time, so that's a pretty good rate. So those are some ways we could use our commander's last ability, but let's focus now on beasts. And what better way to talk about beasts than talking about Garruk? Garruk is one of my favorite planeswalkers of all time, and it's sad that we haven't seen him in quite a while. I do wonder what's happening to him in the storyline. Hopefully next time we go to Ikoria, because he's obviously the caller of beasts, he's the primal hunter, and he's the wrath of the wilds. But let's talk about some of the best Garruk cards that you can put into this deck, because in a way this deck kind of feels more like a tribute to Garruk, because his whole focus and many different interpretations of him focuses on beasts. Let's first focus on Garruk Wildspeaker. This is a classic card. With that +1 ability, you can untap 2 target lands. So what you can do is essentially tap 2 lands for mana, use that +1 to untap them, and then tap those lands for a bigger creature. Plus it does make a 3/3 beast on the battlefield and gives you an overrun ability. Creatures you control get +3/+3 and trample until end of turn. So this one does a little bit of everything for us. It ramps us, it makes beast tokens on the battlefield, and it gives that overrun ability to help us win the game. But now let's call upon the next Garruk with Garruk Unleashed. This is another 4 mana version of this card. It gives 1 creature +3/+3 and trample, which is great with our commander because we want to buff it up so that we could fight other creatures. It does put a beast creature token on the battlefield, and depending on how much creatures our opponents have, we could put a loyalty counter on Garruk. And it does have a very busted -7 ability. You get an emblem at the beginning of your end step. You may search your library for a creature card and put it directly onto the battlefield and shuffle your library. But now I'm going to shift my focus and talk about Garruk Primal Hunter. This is another great version of Garruk, mainly for that -3 ability. That's the part where I love this card. Draw cards equal to the greatest power among creatures you control. So with our commander on the battlefield, we get to draw 5 cards, which is okay rate. But of course, if we buff it up little by little, we could draw more cards that that way. Plus, not to mention, if we get to that -6, we get to put a 6/6 green worm creature token on the battlefield for each land we control. Knowing that we're in green, we're going to be ramping a lot and putting a lot of worms on the battlefield. And the last version of Garruk I wanted to highlight is Garruk Color of Beasts. This one is pretty decent. It does give a semi-card advantage with that +1 ability. Reveal the top 5 cards of your library. Put all creature cards revealed this way into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So knowing this is going to be a heavy creature deck, we get to draw a bunch of cards essentially with that +1 ability. And if we get to that -3 ability, we could put a green creature card from our hand onto the battlefield directly. We don't have to worry about the mana cost. And if we do get to that ultimate, you get an emblem. Whenever you cast a creature spell, you may search your library for a creature card and put it onto the battlefield and shuffle your library. So very similar to Garruk Unleashed. But it's whenever you cast a creature spell, knowing if we keep +1ing him, we're going to have a lot of creatures in our hand that we could essentially just cast and then cheat in another creature from our library. So I think this one is probably one of the better ones out of the rest that I've seen. Alright, so enough about Garruk. You're probably tired of me talking about him so much. So let's move on to the next section. And that of course is playing beasts. There's so many beasts in Magic the Gathering, it's kind of overwhelming. So I want to name a couple of my favorite ones and some of the best options that you can choose from. A while ago when I was playing Standard, Elder Gargaroth was an absolute menace. This beast has so many different abilities for 5 mana, Vigilance, Reach, and Trample, and when it attacks or even blocks, you create a 3/3 beast creature token, you gain 3 life, or you draw a card. So because it has Vigilance, you could swing in, get that trigger, and then you could wait, hold it up for blocking so that you could get that trigger again. I love playing this with Terror of the Peaks because you keep making those 3/3 beast creature tokens when you attack, and you can essentially lightning bolt something. That's at least how I played it when I used to play Standard. Another classic I would like to highlight is Thunderfoot Baloth, mainly because as long as you control your commander, it gets +2/+2, and other creatures you control get +2/+2 and have trample. We can buff up our commander along with all the other beasts we do have on the battlefield. And don't even get me started on Quartzwood Crasher. This is one of my favorite beasts because it's also a dinosaur. I know I'm cheating a little bit with that because I absolutely love dinosaurs, but this has one incredible ability. It does have trample. Whenever one or more creatures you control with trample deal combat damage to a player, you create an XX green dinosaur beast creature token with trample where X is the amount of damage those creatures dealt to that player. This just snowballs into putting bigger and bigger beasts on the battlefield, and they will all trigger our commander because it has that ability. Whenever another creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield, we can pay into that mana cost and have our commander fight another creature. We can keep clearing the board, attack with our creatures with trample, and make a bigger trampling creature later on. And if we truly want to put a huge amount of creatures on the battlefield, Rampaging Baloths will get the job done for us. For 4 and 2 green, it does have trample, and whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you create a 4/4 green beast creature token. That 4 power is key because of course with our commander we could fight another creature we don't control. This is just a great auto include even if you don't have a lot of landfall triggering options with fetch lands. I still think it's a perfect fit because if anything else, it's a trampling 6/6 on the battlefield, and whenever you play that one land, you're going to be increasing the amount of beasts you do have on the battlefield too. Another fun beast I would like to highlight is Spellbreaker Behemoth. This just only costs 4 mana for a 5/5 and it can't be countered, and creature spells you control with power 5 or greater can't be countered as well. So this just basically says screw you blue players, I don't want you countering my spells. So I thought, yeah, of course this got to be in here too. One of the more recent selections from Duskborn House of Horror is Kono Rescue Beastie. This does have 4 power which works with our commander, but most importantly it has that ability at the beginning of your second main phase. If it is tapped, you may put a permanent card from your hand onto the battlefield. Any kind of permanent, whether it's a land, creature, artifact, enchantment, you name it. This cheats in a lot of crazy things, and I feel like it could be another great fit in the deck. And sometimes you may not have a lot of life in the game, so you want to include Ravenous Baloth, mainly because when you sacrifice a beast, you gain 4 life. That's simple enough. I like this effect, especially if we have a Rampaging Baloths. When we have a lot of beasts on the battlefield, we could sacrifice them, especially in response to a board wipe, gain a whole bunch of life, and not have to worry about our life total for a while. But why worry about our life total when we could just overrun our opponents to victory? Most likely in this deck, you're going to be winning in the old-fashioned Gruul way of just smashing your opponents in the face. So of course, the most obvious answer to win the game is Craterhoof Behemoth. I know, it's just a cheap way of winning, but it is a beast, so it's a little bit more flavorful in this deck specifically. So let's move on to Azorius Predation. This is another great card in the deck. For each creature your opponents control, create a 4/4 green Phyrexian Beast creature token. Each of those creatures fight a different one of those creatures. This is one card I feel like could help us win the game, and if we have some way to give those creatures haste, it could be spelling good game for a lot of different opponents we may be facing. But again, like I mentioned, there's a ton of overrun effects that you could absolutely utilize to win the game. However, with that said, that's going to do it for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming by and watching this video on this very cool new beast commander, Slinza the Spiked Stampede. I would love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments. Do you plan on building this yourself? And what other cards would you suggest for this commander? Again, I can't stress enough enough how fun this commander looks. It's a cost reducer, it buffs up your creatures, and it essentially acts as removal fighting other creatures on the battlefield. So if you can, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. That definitely goes a long way in supporting the channel, and with that out of the way, thank you for stomping by.